Mr. Englund, nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
Under the Knife, Robert Englund, best known for his 7 movies and all TV series, are Freddy Krueger. But here, a lot more of Robert than that. We're going to dig into it now. At the beginning, sir, of your career, you made audition for the role of Luke Skywalker from movie Star Wars, and your roommate was Mark Hamill. What you can tell me about this?
Let me correct.
Yes.
Correct it. This is an internet mistake. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, is an old friend of mine, and he was a dear friend of my girlfriend, who wrote the film Lost Boys, which is a title that I suggested for them. I went up for the film Apocalypse Now, Francis Ford Coppola, and I went up for the role of the surfer in Apocalypse Now, one of the crew on the boat. And I was too old, but I was dressed in sort of military clothes. And they sent me across the hall because they thought I might be right for the role of Han Solo. At that time, they were trying to get Tom Selleck for the part of Han Solo. So I was too young. But while I was in the room, I noticed the script, and I went back to my apartment in the Hollywood Hills, and there on my couch, drinking a Heineken and watching the old Mary Tyler Moore show in reruns on afternoon TV, was my buddy Mark Hamill. And I told Mark about the Luke Skywalker part. He got on the phone, called his agent, got an audition, and the rest is history. So that's the true story. All right.
Han Solo.
I was too young. All they did was they just sort of, put me on film, and they said, no, we think you're too young. Because they were thinking then of Han Solo as being older.
That's very interesting. Robert, we know you're a big fan of your genre. Do you choose horror, or did horror choose you?
Well, I think I'm over 75 movies now. And probably 20 to 25 are horror, maybe a little more. The rest are just other movies. Some of them are science fiction, and some of them are thrillers. But I'd done a lot of movies before I did Freddy, and I'd done a successful television series called V. But what happened was the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise snowballed into such a big international hit so quickly that I just sort of surrendered to the momentum and went along with the ride. Wes Craven had counseled me to respect the genre. When I was a boy, I remembered that I'd been obsessed with horror movies. I used to go to my godfather's house and look into a coffee table book, and it was all about the history of the movies, and I would always go to the horror section, the golden age of horror in the 1930s, and there was a great photo of Boris Karloff as Frankenstein smoking a cigarette while they put his makeup on, and there was a great photo of him, a set still, by the lake with the little girl who he breaks her neck when he's done pulling the flower apart, and he throws her into the lake. And then I would look at the picture from Daughters of Dracula, Hijas de Dracula, and they were sexy. This was before the censorship in Hollywood, and the girls were very sexy and underneath their nightgowns, the Daughters of Dracula, and I remember loving that photo. And then in the front of the book, in the silent film section, there was a picture, little tiny photos of all of the Lon Chaney makeups, the man of 1,000 faces. And I was obsessed with those. And in fact, one of them was a picture of Lon Chaney, and he'd boiled an egg and taken the placenta off of the egg and put it over his eye to make his eyes look blind and milky. And I just thought, this is amazing. That's probably the first contact lens. So I remembered this love that I had for those movies when I was a child. And I think that probably went into my saying yes to playing Freddy.
Inspired.
It inspired me, but I think it was down in the back of my mind when I said yes to playing Freddy. And so Wes encouraged me to respect the genre. So I always do at least one horror movie a year because I want to be loyal to my fans, but also because when you see me in a horror movie, I'll be honest, I get more money because I am a star. I fill the seats, as we say. I can still open a movie in Spain and Italy, for instance, and I have a lot of fans still. So I do one every year, at least for the fans. And when you see me on Criminal Minds on television, or on Hawaii Five-0, or on Bones, or shows like that on MTV on Workaholics, I'm just Robert Englund. No, I'm talking about the normal shows, the regular shows. When you see me on a regular television show or in a regular movie, I'm just Robert Englund, the veteran character actor. I'm just getting my normal salary. When you see me in a horror movie, like my new film that's just come out, The Last Showing, or my new horror movie that'll come out in February, which is called The Fear Clinic, then I'm making my horror salary. I'm making more money. So there's a difference. I go back and forth now.
Yes. Sir, do you want to be a theater actor?
I was a theater actor for many years. Yes, I trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and at their American branch. Which was in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. On a campus of a university there at the Meadowbrook Theater outside of Detroit. And I worked with all of the English tutors from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts and with many of the actors that worked at the famous theater across the border in Canada called Stratford, Ontario. It's a great North American theater. And then I worked all around the country in theaters. My big hit was Godspell, the musical. I played Judas.
So you train in the theater. You went to see Sun here of Southern California. Then you went to Michigan and trained at the Division of Writer Well Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Yes, yeah. And in California, I was at UCLA a little bit, and California State University in Northridge. A lot of the faculty there were already in the movies. One of my acting teachers was the famous actor Jeff Corey, who taught Jack Nicholson and Bruce Dern, and was in many movies. He was blacklisted as a communist in the 50s, but he was in many movies in the 40s, and then he had his big comeback with John Frankenheimer's film Seconds, and then of course Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He played the sheriff in that. But he was a wonderful actor and gave me great advice that I still use.
That's good, sir. Tell me about your first film experience. I remember it was back in the 70s, going to alcohol and theater in my neighborhood movie house. It's seen Buster and Billy, and you were sharing memory, even though it was your first film.
Well, one of the things I remember about Buster and Billy back in 1973 was I had to wear contact lenses to make my eyes pink.
Yes.
Because I was playing an albino. And but I was an albino who didn't like to look like an albino, so the albino dyed his hair black. And my eyes are green, and when you put red and green together, you make moreno, brown. So my eyes looked too dark. So on my very first day, in my first starring role, in my very first movie, I had to tell the famous director, I don't want to wear the contact lenses. They make my eyes too dark. I don't look like an albino. My own eyes, if I squint, I can look more like an albino because I have very light eyes. And I had to have the courage to do that as a young actor, and I did. And the director said, "You're right, Robert. The eyes are the windows of the soul, and I want to see your eyes." I was like, whew, But he let me not wear them, and it was a great experience. He was a wonderful director. He was the whitest guy in the world. He was from Canada. Great director named Daniel Petrie. And he's responsible for discovering some of the greatest African-American actors in Hollywood. He directed the original Raisin in the Sun, starring Sidney Poitier and Ruby Dee and Lou Gossett and all Ossie Davis and all the great African-American actors. He was the Canadian director who discovered them all. So I'm very honored that that was my debut, that I got to work with such a great director. I was quite spoiled by working with someone that wonderful, starting off.
It's amazing, Freddy. Most people, you know, we are Freddy Krueger, and that's both a blessing and curse at the same time. But tell me about it, how they came out.
Here's why I've known too many actors that try to control their career. They try to control it, and you can't. You can try really hard to control it, but only a very few people, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Barbara Streisand, Woody Allen, just very few people, Meryl Streep, can really control their careers. And I'm not one of those stars. So when I became famous with Freddy and on the television series V, was that those movies were international hits. They opened the doors for me to work everywhere in the world. I've starred in movies in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I've starred in movies in St. Petersburg, Russia, in Sicily, in Rome, in London, in Spain, in Tel Aviv, Israel, in Johannesburg, South Africa, in Toronto, everywhere. And it's a great adventure as an actor to get to travel and make movies, as well as movies all the time in Hollywood and America. And because of Freddy, I'm international now. Because of V, I'm international. So by surrendering to the horror genre, I learned that the movies of horror, science fiction, fantasy, and action movies, these are the movies that speak the language of cinema. These movies speak the international language of movie making. All audiences understand The Hobbit. They understand Freddy Krueger. They understand a Bruce Willis action movie like Die Hard, or an action movie with Sylvester Stallone, or a great science fiction movie like Aliens. That's the language of movies. So it doesn't matter. They travel better. Our comedies don't travel as well. Our romantic comedies don't travel as well. So I learned that lesson, and it was very smart for me to allow the success of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies to snowball, and I stayed with it because it opened doors for me all over the world. And I still work everywhere. I just starred in a movie last summer in England called The Last Showing, a great little thriller where I play an old projectionist at the Suburban Mall Cinema. And I'm just really delighted to be working all over the world still, as well as Hollywood.
So, sir, the transition of Freddy over the course in these 8 movies and all the TV shows and all that, he got to be much more of a prankster, jokester. I mean, there's been a real change, and just from your perspective, I'd like to know, what do you think?
Well, Freddy always had a great sense of humor. If you remember, in the very first one, Wes Craven gave him a sense of humor.
1984.
In 1984, the tongue comes out of the phone and Freddy says, "I'm your boyfriend now." He cuts his fingers off, you know, and makes a joke. He's always joking. We probably went too far in part 6 of Freddy's Dead. But we did it on purpose. We wanted to kind of make it like a Warner Brothers cartoon. But then we kind of reined it back for Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and for Freddy vs. Jason, we made him a little scarier again. My favorite performance is actually in part 4, Freddy's Revenge. I think that's my best acting as Freddy. The fans like part 3 the best, Dream Warriors. Part 1 is probably the scariest. 3 and 4 are a good double bill. 1 and 7 are a good double bill. But I like I like my acting in part 4 the best.
Sure. This is interesting. When you interpret the character Freddy Krueger, is there something of Robert Englund?
Well, you know what it is. It's, you know, when you're in traffic in Monterey, you're driving around and you get in traffic and every once in a while you curse a little bit. You know, that person comes out in you. That's the part of me that I try to bring, you know, out in Freddy. But back on the original movie, we shot in the summer in Hollywood at the old Desilu, the old I Love Lucy stage. And I was sitting in a barber's chair getting my makeup on, getting touched up. It was very hot and itchy. And they were poking me in the face, putting Vaseline all over me. And I looked next to me, and there was perhaps the most beautiful young people in the whole world at that time. Heather, who played Nancy, and Johnny Depp, who played Glenn. And they actually were putting makeup on these two beautiful young actors. They didn't need any makeup. And they gave them those little plastic fans to keep them cool. And I looked over and I thought, oh, damn, Robert, maybe playing Freddy wasn't a good idea. Maybe you should not have said yes. Look at these two young, beautiful kids. They have their whole careers ahead of them. Here you are, 30 years old, getting KY jelly and Vaseline put all over you. You're itchy, it's hot. Maybe you didn't do the right thing. And I was a little angry. And I thought, I can use that. I can use that anger as Freddy. I can use the fact that I envy Johnny Depp and Heather Langenkamp, the beautiful actress. And that's what Freddy hates youth. He hates beauty. He hates the young. He kills the young. And I can use my envy of them being at the beginning of their careers. And I was obviously right. Johnny Depp's one of the biggest stars in the world now. But my envy of them and their youth and their beauty and Johnny's handsomeness and Heather's loveliness, I was able to use a little kind of shorthand, a little synapse, what we say in acting, we call it sense memory. It's an old actor's studio trick that you can use, and you call it up. Once you have that little experience, that little memory, then you can just bring it back every time, and that's what I used on the set to get angry as Freddy.
Sir, can you tell me a little anecdote? You can tell me when you did Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. Something you remember about the role?
Well, we went across the street. I was sick of the food on the set. It was just peanut butter and jelly and Doritos, you know, and food wasn't very good. You know, cheese, what do they call them? The little cheese crinkles, potato chips, Cheez-Its. And I went across the street in the makeup with Johnny Depp and Nick Corey, the other actor, to a Thai restaurant for Thai food, along with wonderful Mexican restaurants. We have great Thai food as well. Southern California, along with great Mexican food. We have a lot of immigrants from Vietnam, so the Thai food is great. And we were sick of the food on the set, and Johnny Depp and the actor Nick Cordy and I, we went across the street, and everybody's so used to seeing me in the makeup 5 weeks, 6 weeks into the movie, it's just Robert underneath all that crap, you know, all that latex. So we went to the restaurant, and we're sitting there, and I'm looking towards the kitchen door, and out of the kitchen door with a full tray of lunch food comes this old Vietnamese man, probably somebody's grandfather. He's coming over to be an immigrant to Estados Unidos, to the U.S., and he comes out of the swinging door in the kitchen, and he sees Freddy Krueger sitting there in the dark restaurant in the booth. He lost it. He dropped the whole tray. I hope he didn't get... And he screamed, the poor old man, he screamed and he ran back in the kitchen. I hope he didn't get fired because he dropped all of the food. But it was a very valuable lesson that I learned, which is I can't go out in public in that makeup because I can terrify people.
Yeah, I know, sir. We're going to continue with the private questionnaire. Quick questions. What's your favorite word?
My favorite word?
What's
travel. Yeah.
That's good, sir. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Well, creatively, I love other actors. I'm a fan, like everyone. I'm a fan too. It's why I'm in this business. So I'm really, really inspired by great actors, especially on the stage, live theater, teatro.
What's your favorite curse word?
Curse word? Well, I don't know if I can say it, but
You can say it.
we used to say, I said this once by accident, very similar to what we're doing now with some Swedish. My last name is Swedish. And I was taking them out to dinner, like if I would take you guys out to dinner in Monterey. If you were visiting me and I was taking you out to a Monterey-style Mexican restaurant in LA for drinks and food. I was taking them out to a Swedish restaurant near my home, and I got lost driving the car, and they were filming me. And I said, there's an old expression surfers used to say, which is, "Fuck me in the mouth." And I said it because I was lost. I missed my off-ramp on the freeway. Well, the next time I went to Sweden, people come up to me on the street and they go, "Hey, fuck me in the mouth." It's just to them, to their ears, it's very funny, even though it's quite a nasty thing to say. But because they love it in Sweden now, that's probably my favorite curse.
What sound or noise do you love?
I love reggae music. I really love reggae music from Jamaica. There's something about that sound that really relaxes me. And Frank Sinatra, because he reminds me, my mother and father are gone now. I hear Frank Sinatra and I can see my mom and dad dancing together. Yeah.
Well, what sound do you know? Sound or noise do you hate?
Well, the one we all hate, which is fingernails on the blackboard. You know, oh, that one gets me. Yeah.
What professions other than you own will you like to attempt?
Well, I think if I could live my life over again, I might like to be a jazz piano player, because a musician, a jazz musician, especially a piano player, because if you had a piano, I think you can actually play for yourself. Like you see guitar players sitting around, they can just play for themselves sometimes. You don't need an audience. And if you could be a jazz and just play the piano, you know, for yourself, and the songs can come out of you. I think that would be so great to be able to do it. When you're an actor, we need an audience. Musicians can sometimes play for themselves, I think.
They forgot the world.
Yeah, I think that would be great to be able to do that.
What profession will you not like to do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's so many. I don't think I'd be a good doctor. I think that I wouldn't like, it sounds weird because I'm Freddy Krueger, but I don't think I'd want to be around all of the blood, or I don't think I could do surgery. I'm also would be afraid to be a fireman, because anytime a fireman goes into a fire, there's always new chemical combinations of things that could become flammable, that could hurt them. They never know what's in that building, that could explode. Yeah, that I really, really respect firemen. That's got to be the hardest job.
Sir, if heaven exists, what will you like to hear God say when you arrive to the pearly gates?
Robert, I have a part for you.
Sir, and the final question. If you were born again, would you like to be Freddy Krueger?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's been a great adventure, especially being, you know, being able to work all over the world. It's been a great adventure in my life. And I wouldn't have changed anything, I don't think. If I've already lived the life once and I could come back again, yeah, I might want to go a whole different way. Maybe I would stay and just have been a surfer and have lived forever down in, what is the name of the famous beach where all the California surfers love in Mexico? They love Todos Santos, you know, off of Baja. And they love, there's a great beach south of Puerto Vallarta that the surfers love, Puerto Escondido in Mexico. Or just north of Puerto Vallarta, there's a great little, maybe I would just be living, you know, in Mexico and surfing, you know. Maybe that would be my life. Or maybe, like I just said to you, maybe I would be a jazz musician. Come back and be, you know, I played trumpet quite well. Not mariachi, but jazz. But I love the trumpet. And maybe maybe instead of trumpet, I would have been the jazz piano player. Maybe that would be my life. I don't know.
That's good, sir. And this is, we're finished.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Okay, all right. And great questions. I liked all the questions.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And we're glad to have you here in Monterrey.
Well, I'm going to, next time I come back, I'm going to bring Nancy. And I want to explore up in the mountains. I want to find a little restaurant up in the foothills. And I also want to maybe take the train to Veracruz. Veracruz, for some reason, has always been on my bucket list, just to, you know, eat their camarones and sit outside and, yeah, just relax, yeah.
Okay, sir.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Mr. Englund.
Okay. Robert Englund here, a.k.a. Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street films. And I hope you enjoy my interview on Anauic today.